And I've been working on a collaboration with Deborah Rosenberg and several other women, Ayala included, where we've taken these predominantly male Jewish stories and feminized them. And this is one of them that in which the original story, the man got the last word, but I felt like, well, So once Reb Yeshaya of Poland had a wife, Chava, who was always giving him trouble. Now, how could his wife be giving him trouble, you're thinking? Well, I don't know. Maybe she was running around with her friends and never at home. Maybe she was arguing with him all the time. Or maybe she was being frivolous and spending all the money, too much money. But actually, no, it wasn't any of those. She was always praying. Yeah, because exactly. I mean, you think that's a good thing, right? Here we are today, we're praying, right? And that's a good thing. But his wife, Chava, was so absorbed in prayer that she would walk around all day long with her nose in a prayer book, and she was muttering to herself all day long and wouldn't pay attention to anything else. So Reb Yeshaya, for instance, would get up in the morning, and he would go to shul, and he would lead the prayers, and then he would come back home and he would say, "Well, Havilah, what's for breakfast?" And she'd say, "Shh, don't bother me. Quit interrupting. Can't you see I'm praying?" Well, he would wait a little while longer, go do his thing, come back at lunchtime, and he'd say, "Chava, it's lunchtime. What are we having?" And she'd say, "Shh, can't you see I'm reciting Psalms? Don't interrupt me." And it wasn't any better at dinner time. You can imagine he would come home and he would say, "So, Havilah, darling, what's for dinner?" And she'd say, "I don't know what's for dinner because I am busy with spiritual things. I can't pay attention to things, physical things like food. I am in the midst of holy prayer." Well, he tried again right before bed. "How about a nice cup of tea you should get me?" And she said, "I should not get you. You should get yourself because I am in the middle of prayer." Well, this went on for a while. One day, he decided to try to beat her at her own game. So he came out with carrying a book. And he said, "Chava, look." And he pulled her out of the prayer book and he said, "See here, the sages say, who is a good wife? One who obeys the will of her husband." And she said, "Really? The sages say?" "Well, the sages also say." And she flipped the pages, a few more pages, and she said, "Here, the sages also say, whosoever is occupied with doing a mitzvah is considered exempt from doing another mitzvah. And I'm always doing a mitzvah. I'm always praying. So I am exempt from doing the will of my husband." And she closed the book. Undaunted, Reb Yeshaya came back the next day with a bigger book. And he said, "Havilah, look here. It says in the book of Exodus that all of the women, the pious women, were occupied and engaged in the building of the temple at Sinai." And she said, "So?" And he said, "So, it says all of the women whose hearts were stirred with wisdom." She said, "Your point?" And he said, "Well, A little further on, and he flipped those pages again, and he said, here in the book of Esther, it says again, parallel phrasing, all of the women should obey the will of their husbands in every way. And she said, and that proves what? And he says, the parallel phrasing emphasizes the importance of the phrase all of the women, and it means that even the women who were building the temple at Sinai were not exempt from following the will of their husband at all times. And she said, seriously? Really? You're quoting me from the book of Esther? You don't think I know the scriptures? That's the part in the book of Esther, and we just did this a week or so ago at Purim, by the way. That's the part in the book of Esther where King Ahasuerus' friends convince him that he should do away with his wife Vashti because she won't do his bidding. She refuses to dance naked at the party for his friends, and he has her killed. Is that what you want? Do you want to kill me? And he said, no, I don't want to kill you. And she said, then what do you want? And he said, I want to eat. I'm hungry. And she said, yes, I'm hungry too. And he said, would you show me how to make an egg? And she agreed. And so they went into the kitchen. And while she showed him how to make eggs, they talked about some points of Torah. And then they had a lovely breakfast together and they discussed Talmud. And from that day on, they cooked and ate all of their meals together, and every day they talked and argued over points of Torah and Talmud and Scripture all day long. And I'm told that from that day on, neither one of them ever went hungry again.
Amen.
Happy spring, everybody.